Today we're here to talk about Virginia Woolf, who is well known, quite well loved too. But many people are afraid of her, and I think I would include myself in that team too. She's famous for writing difficult books, right? Books that we often feel that we should study rather than read, because they are that difficult. But today we wanted to explore something different with you. Virginia Woolf is really great. She really deserves all the fame that she has got. And today we'll try to do something different and read a very short story, right? A short story that is about a page and a half long, and that is a ghost story, okay, called A Haunted House. So I love this. When I first learned about this short story and then read it for the first time, I was enthralled, because this is not the kind of text that you immediately associate with Virginia Woolf. Okay? Before we go on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Literature is just so cool. Anna, you would have to introduce us, right?
Okay, good. Good. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Well, if we haven't met before, right? Probably have been my students before, because I see some various familiar faces. I'm Anna, right? I'm Anna Torquato. I'm a teacher and the creator of a book a month. And I'm a postdoc in literature. I love literature, but I also do love teaching English, which is also part of my major. I have a PhD in postdoc in comparative literature, but also have been teaching English throughout most of my adult life, right? So this is what we do here in a book a month. So I'm pretty glad to welcome you all. And also, I would like to introduce you, Áureo, who is also teacher at a book a month. He is doing his postdoc at the moment, right, in Italy at the University of Padua. He researches here since the last year, and he has been a teacher in a book a month for quite a while, so we share this ride together. He is also a host of the podcast Literatura, which some of you may know, right? Some of you get to us through Literatura, and it's very nice to have this very large group with us today to talk a little bit about literature. So just to give you a briefing, this is your first contact with a book a month, we are a reading school, if we can say like that, like a literature school who teaches literature and also literature in English while learning English at the same time, or vice versa, right? Depends on how you approach it. We read classics of literature in English, and at the same time we manage to practice the language, to learn more and to be fluent as we go, right? We have been celebrating this year, like since June the last month, right? June, we have been celebrating our fourth journey together, our fourth turn of the sun, since we started in 2020. And we have read so much through this time. So also this open class is a celebration for that, right? So welcome all. Áureo is going to be teaching the class today, right? And he's going to guide you through the vaults of Virginia Woolf.
That's great. So thank you very much, Anna. So guys, we're ready to start. Just one note before we dive into A Haunted House. This is a class that I taught in a book a month last semester, or this semester, right? So in the first semester. It was something that we studied in this course here, reading class, in which we read short stories or poems, and even a theater play, an entire theater play, we read it in class all together, right? So this course was created for those of you that do not have time to do the reading, so we read it together. So this is the feeling that you'll get from the class. And those are the authors that we'll be reading in the upcoming semester. A few poets like William Blake and John Silverstein, and obviously William Shakespeare himself, but also many short stories writers like Ernest Hemingway, for example, or Kate Chopin, not so well known, but really a proto-modernist in the quite similar to Virginia Woolf, sincerely. Anyway, just so that you know how to understand the way we will proceed in this class, okay? So moving on, Virginia Woolf, let's start with her. She died still quite young. She was born in 1882, at the end of the 19th century, and really saw many cultural transformations during her lifetime. She was a big part of those transformations herself, right? I'm certain that many of you know how much she contributed to feminism in her day, to the fight for women votes and suffrage, right? And so there are many interesting essays, contributions, intellectual contributions to discussion of society at large that we can subscribe to Virginia Woolf, and precisely for the fact that she saw so many transformations. A big one is the First World War, right? And this will appear in our text today. She is definitely an icon, okay? An icon of literary modernism. Modernism is it's a very broad term. It's a set of many artists. Modernism is not only something that you find in literature. Modernism is actually embracing all art forms, and it's a period of a profound transformation. You know, cinema is born, photography is developing very fast, literature is changing completely. Painting is changing completely too. So I think maybe it is easier for us to start talking about painting rather than talking about literature straight away. Because when we look into paintings by Kandinsky or Picasso, we immediately recognize that something is different. Many of you might be thinking, my 5-year-old daughter could have drawn those pictures, right? Or sometimes we feel we could have made it ourselves, or actually we did when we were kids. Many of us have things that might look similar. But the entire point of modernist art in general is to consciously break with the past. Okay, so they are on purpose. They are considering what was done before, and they have studied that, and they can do that. Okay, Picasso is a great example. He went to many art academies in Catalonia, and he could, if he wanted to paint realistically, he was definitely capable of, and he had the skills. And we do have some of the early paintings in his career. They are realist, and then you can, they're not, it's not like all fragmented, it's not cubist yet, and you can see how well he could draw, how well, if you mean realistically, right? So he could do that. He decided not to do this. And so they are consciously changing the way representation works in art in general. This is happening in the graphic arts, this is happening in painting, this is happening in sculpture, this is happening in music. You start to get atonality, you start to get music that is intentionally using silence, for example, so the opposite of music, so you have a lot of experiments going on, a lot of experimentation, a lot of creativity too. Sometimes it is fascinating, sometimes it is boring, sincerely, let's be frank, but it is a period of intense fermentation, okay? In literature, there is this phrase that they would use all the time, make it new, okay? This was a slogan of Ezra Pound, who is a poet from the US, highly influential. central intellectual, and so he would develop his own theories about art and art criticism. And one of his formulations was precisely this: the idea that we would talk about the same things. We will still discuss themes related to death, to love, to human life in general, right? Because there's a broad spectrum of human concerns. They are very broad, but still they are constant, you know. All of us in the end kind of desire the same things, you know, to be happy, to be loved, to have families, and to enjoy life, to live well and comfortably. So when we look to literature that was produced throughout history, in the end, it's always talking about those same issues, right? And so we will still talk about those things, but let's make it new. Let's talk about those things in a new way, because we are living in a very, very different world. We are living in a world that is now industrialized. We are living in a world in which, you know, if you think in the 1910s and 1920s, the ravages of war, right? Mass slaughter, mass destruction. For the first time, people are starting to buy cars. So you start to get traffic jams, something new, frankly, at that period, like the 1910s or 1920s. Women are asking and demanding for the right to vote, for the right to work, for the right to inherit property, for the right to answer for themselves. And so you have many changes in society, changes that are economic, that are political, that are even religious, okay? So it is natural that with all those things that are changing and so fast, literature will answer with an entire new set of techniques. They will invent many new tools, okay, to create, you know, in the same way that a sculptor needs his hammer and needs all his tools to create his sculpture. The, you know, writers, they also need tools, and they do create different techniques to do that. And so here I chose four luminaries, four icons of modernist literature. James Joyce, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, has written Ulysses, which is a profoundly experimental novel. You know, when you read it, you get the feeling that I understand all the words, I understand all the sentences, but the sentence alone, but when I put them together, they don't make sense. You know, you're scratching your head because you're like, it is very difficult, but why? You know, he wrote it, I just have to read it. So why is it, how exactly is it difficult? You know, and it's difficult in English, obviously, but it's also extremely difficult in Portuguese, okay? Precisely because his idea of what to read is profoundly different. He does not expect you to go to the beach, get a book, and have a nice time just reading like that. He kind of expects you to sit down with his book and study it for, I don't know, a year or something. You know, it's a very demanding work, but also very rewarding because it's filled with new creations and puzzles. So if you're the kind of person that loves crosswords or Sudoku, you know, if you like puzzles and chess, most likely you will love modernist literature. This is true about James Joyce. This is definitely true about Catherine Mansfield, a great writer, a short story writer from New Zealand that often does not get enough press, you know, at least not the same amount that she deserves. She met Virginia Woolf. They were friends, but also quite often they would be like, you know, poking one another. So yeah, kind of. And Virginia Woolf famously declared that this woman here, Catherine Mansfield, was the only writer that she has ever envied, okay? So basically, upon saying this, she's at least recognizing that she is as good as herself, maybe even a little bit better. So I have to, you know, they had this conflictual relationship precisely because of this, a relationship of admiration, but also a little bit of envy, maybe. Very, very interesting writer. William Faulkner, a different modernist writer from the US, who has written many experimental books, all of them very difficult. At some point in his life, he was being interviewed by this journalist that told him, "I've read your book, Mr. Faulkner, 3 times, and I still don't get it. So what do you advise me to do to understand it properly?" And Faulkner replied, "Read it a 4th time." So on the 4th time, you will get it, you know? So you get the kind of feeling, you know, when we read Virginia Woolf and feel that we're lacking behind, that we're losing something, it is not because we're not good readers. It is not because we are sleepy or lazy. It is because the text is constructed in this way. We do need special tools to be able to interpret those texts. You know, and the same thing applies for our last icon in here, someone from Portugal, someone beloved to many of us, I'm sure, Fernando Pessoa, right? Who has created his own thing, right? Heteroнимia is something that we even had to invent this a different word to talk about him, you know? Pessoa is discussed on his own terms. He has created this amazing, like, absolutely genius literary corpus, right? It's so productive, so creative, but still not the easiest poet to approach either, right? Definitely very rewarding, but not necessarily easy. So I'm saying all of this because Virginia Woolf is definitely one of the key players in this movement, not only in its maturity, but also in its formation, okay? So you've probably heard about something about Mrs. Dalloway. Maybe you've read it. Mrs. Dalloway is maybe her most famous work, okay? She published it in 1925, if I'm not mistaken. And it is about this upper class woman that is throwing a party. And that's it. One day in a woman's life. That's all. So, you know, it's something quite simple from one perspective, but it's very complex from another, because what Virginia Woolf is really interested in is on the representation of thought. So our minds are always working, right? And when you're just living, okay, just waiting for a friend, I don't know, to come in a bar, you're waiting for your friend is late. And if you pay attention to your thoughts, wow, it will be like a mess. You know, you'll be thinking about, oh, I have something to do when I get back home. And oh, where is John? And oh, yes, I love this song. And this makes me think about my aunt. And so you make like a lot of a free flow of connections that only you can actually understand. And maybe not even you. Sincerely, right? Sometimes when we're thinking and when we're immersed in thought, we think things that we're like, what, you know, like we get surprised ourselves. So when you think about your best friend, you actually don't think in this way. Oh, I love Paula, comma, my best friend who I've met in school when we were 4 years. Oh, comma again. Oh, she has arrived at my place. You know, we don't think like that. We just think Paula, and that's all. Or maybe we don't even think her name. We just imagine her face in our minds, for example. Maybe we don't even use language. Who knows? So if you want to portray this, but in a text, how do you do it? Okay? Your text that is interested in portraying thought as it is happening in your mind, it has to be complicated. It has to be confusing. Precisely because it is trying to portray, to represent something that is confusing, that is complex, okay? So what Virginia Woolf is often doing is precisely creating techniques that allow for this, for us to go inside the mind of someone else. Sincerely, unless you are an X-Men, you have not done this ever, okay? And the opportunity to do that, or something close to read someone's mind, is actually read such stories. Okay, this is what happening. This is what happening happening into the lighthouse, for example. Absolutely brilliant book, okay? Quite short too. So, you know, it's much shorter than The Waves, for example, which is also very brilliant. And it's famous for having no story at all. You know, you're just like listening to those thoughts, many 6 different people, and that's all. And you don't really get a story being developed there. Brilliant book, but quite different from everything you've read in your life. And then we have Orlando, that is much more approachable. We do have a storyline, you know. There is even an element of magical realism, if you want, you know, because it is a guy that becomes a girl or a girl that becomes a guy. So it's a very interesting. It's kind of immortal too. It's a very interesting narrative, and quite funny too. So maybe it is one of the good places to enter her work. Okay. If you do not believe me, you may believe Jorge Luis Borges, one of the greatest Argentinian writers, and really a great writer in general, if we think in global literature. And he translated Virginia Woolf. He translated Orlando and A Room of One's Own, okay, which is an essay about feminism and the rights of women. And he said this after translating Virginia Woolf twice: "This is the most intense work and one of the most singular and maddening of our age." Okay, and I'm sure he's using maddening, enlouquecedor, right, as a compliment here, right? And definitely she was an influence in his work for sure. Okay, one technique that she's using, and we will kind of be able to glimpse in our short story today, is the stream of consciousness, okay? And the stream of consciousness is precisely portraying the flow of thoughts that is going through your head. So if I basically just write my thoughts down, you know, like as if anything that I'm thinking, but just without, I will not finish every sentence, you know, I will not think, you know, in a logic, cohesive way. I will not be, you know, you won't have introduction, development, conclusion. It will be a mess. And the stream of consciousness is doing precisely this. In some authors, when they use stream of consciousness, they do not use punctuation sometimes. Sometimes they do not use capital letters. So sometimes they do not even use paragraphs. So you get, you know, those free flow of words that never end for pages and pages and pages, and which is very challenging in the beginning, but while, you know, little by little you develop intimacy with it, and you start to understand it, and it gets so great, you know. It's very rewarding in this sense. Okay, so I've mentioned Mrs. Dalloway already. Yeah, and the book, it's after World War I, okay? So many of the characters that appear there are trying to deal with the trauma of war, and basically the whole idea of the story that we read, you know, the things that are happening, the party, and so on. It's actually just an excuse to give us the characters' interior emotional life, okay? The way they think, the way they feel, right? So rather than telling you Clarissa felt sad, Virginia Woolf will show you that she's sad. She'll show you what she's thinking, and you will have to conclude for yourself that she's sad. Okay, and sometimes that's very easy. Sometimes it's very challenging, because we ourselves, many times we do not really realize, you know, we're angry and we don't really realize, you know. This is why we need psychologists, by the way, right? Because we have to learn how to interpret our own emotions sometimes. And this is true about us, and this is also true about these literary characters. Last slide before we go into our story. Rather than reading Mrs. Dalloway, something that we really want to do, and we have been discussing it for the past 4 years, since the beginning of A Book a Month, but you know, it would have to be a kind of group therapy group, you know, like because people would have to hug and everything, so we keep postponing. But one great piece to read instead as a preparation, as training, is precisely reading her short stories. They will give you some of the difficulty, and they will, because they're so short, it's easy to read maybe a second time, okay, to get intimacy with those techniques. So A Haunted House was published in 1921, so 4 years before Mrs. Dalloway, and in her only short stories book. Okay, so Virginia Woolf, in her lifetime, she only published one book of short stories with very, very few, I think just 5 or 6 short stories. And this book was called Monday, Tuesday. So it is the one on the left, this one here. After she died, 3 years after, I think in 1944, her husband, Leonard Woolf, decided to republish the first book by and adding many other short stories that she had written, but which were not published yet. So it was republished posthumously in the second book here that is called A Haunted House and Other Stories. Okay, just a curiosity. The first book was illustrated by Vanessa Bell. Does anyone know who she is? Does it ring a bell? Vanessa Bell is her sister, right? And so, where's my slide? Okay, I'll show you later because I don't know where the slide is. I think it's, yeah. Okay, it's not working, but she was a painter, okay? Very interesting and also relevant painter. Her name is Bell because that is her husband's surname, okay? In the same way that Virginia was not called Woolf, she was called Stephen, right? And then Woolf is the name of Leonard, actually. She got her husband's name. And then Vanessa is a very interesting painter and a very relevant painter in her own right. So I find it very interesting that we have the sisters, Stephen, actually, right? Both of them very rebellious, both of them very intellectual, and producing essays and theories that have quite a legacy. Okay, we're good to start reading. If we were in an actual A Book a Month class, I would ask the students to read the short story first once, okay? And then we will have to ask those two questions. What happens in the story and how many characters are there? Because you read it, but not even the number of characters, you know? You're reading it, you're like, what is this about one person? Is this about 4 people? It's not very clear, okay? You're not even really sure what the story is about. In here, we don't have a time to read it twice, okay? So I'll just jump this part. And unfortunately, I will mark the different voices in this short story, okay? So it is something that breaks my heart. I will cry a little bit when I go to bed tonight, okay? Because, you know, my idea of teaching literature is not to give you the end result, but rather to build up with my students and with our students the interpretation little by little. So it is not frontal in this sense, in that we are giving you the end result, but rather we're creating the interpretation and the end result collectively. Okay, so this is something that we always try to do. We don't have enough time to mature this, and so I will separate those voices. And what is going on here is this. It is a haunted house, so it is a ghost story. In this haunted house, there are 2 ghosts, a couple, a man and a woman, and there is another couple that is alive, okay? So 2 living, 2 dead. We do not have access to the husband. We're not even sure if the husband is there, although he's indirectly mentioned in the end of the story. But we're not even sure, maybe he's traveling, maybe the wife is alone at home, okay? And she can kind of hear the ghosts. She cannot see them, but sometimes she has the impression, you know, like the ghosts are around her. And so basically we get 3 characters. 1 woman who is alive, a housewife, and then 2 ghosts that are roaming around her house, okay? The different colors in here, the code is, when we're reading black letters, this is the narrator. So the person that is telling us the story from a third eye, from the bird eye perspective. Okay, so seeing the story from above and telling it to us in the third person. Then we have the ghosts in blue or red. So red is for the woman and blue is for the guy. And then when they speak together, it's orange. Okay, and then when the housewife who is alive is thinking, it's in green. Okay, so the green is her thoughts. It is originally you would not get the colors, and so it is quite challenging to know who. So this is the key difficulty in Virginia Woolf, is not actually understanding the sentence, you know. But it wasn't that you woke us. Oh no, it's very easy to understand. Oh no, you know. However, what is not easy to understand is who the hell is saying this. It's such a mess, you know. So this is why we were doing this color code. If you're colorblind, I'm so sorry. This will not work for you in the same way, okay? Okay, I'll just read the first two paragraphs. A haunted house. Whatever hour you woke, there was a door shutting. From room to room they went, hand in hand, lifting here, opening there, making sure, a ghostly couple. Here we left it, she said, and he added, oh, but here too. It's upstairs, she murmured. And in the garden, he whispered. Quietly, they said, or we shall wake them. 4 lines. What is going on? Okay, for the very first sentence, we get this opening, right? Whatever hour you woke, okay, we get a you already, like you who, like, you know, you, whatever hour you woke, like me, Áureo, you know, the person, the reader, not really, okay? Whatever hour you woke, there was a door shut. So in this house, in this haunted house, the doors close and apparently by themselves and open by themselves. So they're always shutting, making the loud noise. From room to room they went. Who? Okay, so, you know, when we talk, if in normal conversation, if I'm talking with any of you and telling you some gossip, I'll tell you, oh, have you heard the news about Paul and Maria? Oh no, yes, they are together. You know, first I identify who I'm talking about, and then I use a pronoun, right? Virginia Woolf is doing the opposite. She's giving us a they, and then we get confused, like from room to room they went, hand in hand, lifting here, opening there, making sure, a ghostly couple. So this they is actually the ghostly couple, okay, the couple of ghosts. So we get first the pronoun and then the thing that the pronoun is referring to, okay? So this is a very, very little thing that is adding up to the confusion. Now they start talking. Here we left it, she said. The narrator is kind to us. He's telling us, we know that someone is talking because we have the quotation marks in here. So we know it's not the narrator. Here we left it, she said. And he added, oh, but here too. It's upstairs, she murmured. And in the garden, he whispered. So they're talking and they're looking for something. They left something behind and they're together holding hands. We were just told in the first paragraph. So they are together and they're looking in this house at night, probably for something, but quietly, or we shall wake them. This them is actually the couple that is alive. So probably this is happening at night. The couple is sleeping and the ghosts are kind of aware that maybe they can be heard. And so they are nice ghosts, actually. I wish my neighbors were just like them. You know, they're trying not to disturb them. You know, they're trying to be quiet and nice. Okay. And then third paragraph, yet another change. Anna, can you help me with the reading, please?
Sure. But it wasn't that you woke us. Oh no. They're looking for it. They're drawing the curtain, one might say, and so read on a page or two. Now they found it. one would be certain, stopping the pencil on the margin. And then, tired of reading, one might rise and see for oneself the house all empty, the doors standing open, only the wood pigeons bubbling with content, and the hum of the threshing machine sounding from the farm. What did I come in here for? What did I want to find? My hands were empty. Perhaps it's upstairs then? The apples were in the loft, and so down again, the garden still as ever, only the book had slipped into the grass.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, let's try it once again. You know, this is a general trick we use to interpret modernism. You should not read, you should reread, okay? Because often it is too confusing to be understood on the first glance. If you do read it, you know, Mrs. Dalloway from cover to cover and get everything and understand everything, wow, continue like that, you're gonna get a Nobel Prize eventually, okay? Normal people do not understand this on a first read, not all of it, some of it, yes, and you get better, but not all of it. But it wasn't that you woke us, oh no. So basically, the housewife has heard what the ghosts were saying to themselves, right? No, you did not wake us. And it seems that she's kind of sleeping, but kind of awake. You know, those moments when you're sometimes waking up, sometimes sleeping, that you're not really aware. If you're, sometimes we even talk with people and we don't remember. So we're in this transition phase, you know, in between sleep and being awake. So it seems that this is what is happening in here. She's kind of slumbering, you know, she had a very light sleep and she hears the ghosts. And she's like, but it wasn't that you woke us. Oh, no. They're looking for it. They're drawing the curtain, one might say. So in here, these commas, unlike these here, these commas serve us, these quotation marks, sorry, the quotation marks in this place here, probably she's imagining herself saying this sentence, okay? So to someone, they're looking for it. They're drawing the curtains, one might say. And so read on a page or two. So she's imagining as a situation in which she's reading, like, you know, like passing her afternoon reading a book, and then she notices that the curtain is moving. And then she says this, they're looking for it. They're drawing the curtain, okay? To draw the curtain is an expression that means to block something or to conceal something, okay? So, and in this case, they are using the curtain to conceal something. So now they found it, one would be certain, stopping the pencil on the margin. So you know, when you're writing down and then you think about something and then you stop writing because you heard a noise maybe. So this is what is going on here. She's writing something and then no noise. Okay, oh, they're gone. They're no longer here. She's not really afraid of the ghosts, notice. You know, I don't consider myself especially coward, but if I'm reading a book and I notice that a ghost is moving on my back, I will definitely not be so blasé, you know, like I wish I had this courage, but I don't think this is what the result will be, you know, probably I will run down at least a few blocks, okay? So she's not really afraid of them, which is very, very interesting considering this is a ghost story. Okay, and so she's writing down, she notices there's no sound, so and then, tired of reading, one might rise and see for oneself. And so she's looking for the ghosts now. Now, the house is all empty. The doors standing open. So basically, they're gone. The house is empty. Only the wood pigeons bubbling. Those are wood pigeons, okay? Quite similar with all the pigeons you've seen in your life, with the difference that those are living in the wild, not in city parks, you know? And you can actually eat them. In England, they do eat wood pigeons a lot. So the only thing she can hear is the sound of the wood pigeons bubbling, that sound that pigeons do, with content, and the hum of the threshing machine sounding from the farm. So this is a threshing machine, okay? It's a machine that you use to collect seeds, you know, some kind of tool that you use on farms. And the hum is this, you know, when you're making mantras, for example, this is a hum, when you're singing a song without opening your lips. So she can only listen to the sound of the birds and this hum of the motor of this machine. Okay. And suddenly we get this other sentence that is apparently disconnected with it all. What did I come in here for? What did I want to find? So she's asking herself what I was looking for. You know, something that always happens to me when I get my phone and then someone has sent me a message and then I spent half an hour on Instagram and then I realized like what I wanted to do in the first place. This is exactly what is happening to her right now. What did I come in here for? What did I want? And as she looks down, my hands were empty. So she remembers what she's looking for. Perhaps it's upstairs then. The apples were in the loft. So you notice that we see her, she looking for something, but we only realize that it's apples later, okay? The apples were in the loft. The loft is the second stage in houses in England, okay? So basically she had to go upstairs and get the apple. Next sentence, and so down again. So the text does not even tell us. She noticed that the apples she was looking for were in the were in the loft, and so she went upstairs, took them, and went down. The text does not give us this. The text gives us. She thinking, where are the things? Oh, the apples are in the loft, and so down again. So in between this period in here and the start of this sentence, she went up and now she's going down. But Virginia Woolf does not tell you that she's going up because she doesn't need to do that, because if she's going down, it's because she's already gone up, right? Otherwise, it would be impossible. So this is the kind of thing, the kind of omission that we often find in modernist texts, okay? So the first 100 times we find this, we get confused, but after the 100th, we start to get used to it, you know? And so down again, the garden still as ever, very calm, no movement. Only the book had fallen into the grass, had slipped into the grass. Continuing. Can you go on, Anna, please?
Sure. So they had found it in the drawing room, not that one could ever see them. The window panes reflected apples, reflected roses. All the leaves were green in the glass. If they moved in the drawing room, the apple only turned its yellow side. Yet, the moment after, if the door was open, spread about the floor, hung upon the walls, pendant from the ceiling. What? My hands were empty. The shadow of a thrush crossed the carpet. From the deepest wells of silence, the wood pigeon drew its bubble of sound. Safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beat softly. The treasure buried, the room. The pulse stopped short. Oh, was that the buried treasure?
So once again, what? Let's try again. Thank you, Anna. Now we're getting a mixed voice in here. We're getting, maybe this is the narrator, maybe this is still the housewife thinking. We don't know her name. So it is a bit, but they had found it in the drawing room. So basically the ghosts were looking for something and they found that in the drawing room and disappeared. The drawing room is not the living room, right? The living room, sala de estar, right? The drawing room is actually originally was calling with drawing room. So it's not a rule, it's not a room that you use to make drawing, you know, or paint something. No, it's not. It is a room in which you would go with your friends to have fun. Probably you have games there. So a room that only exists in the houses of the rich, basically. So by knowing that they do have a drawing room in their house, we now know that this is probably an upper class lady, you know. And so Virginia Woolf does not tell us she is a rich woman. She's telling us her house has a drawing room, and then you have to conclude for yourself what this entails. Okay, so they had found something in the drawing room, not that one could ever see them, so they're not visible. The window panes reflected apples, reflected roses. All the leaves were green in the glass. So basically, those are the window panes at the bottom here. So the glass is reflecting the garden. So you can see the grass, you can see the flowers, you can see the leaves of the trees. But yet, if they moved in the drawing room, so if the ghosts go into the room, the apple only turned its yellow side, which means probably that when they move in between the apple and the glass, the reflection is no longer green, it becomes yellow. So they're not completely invisible. They are somewhat translucent. You can kind of see something. It's foggy. It's some kind of smoke, but they kind of change the colors of things when they pass. So you can realize that they are there because of this, okay? Because the apple only turned its yellow side. This means I see dead people, but just a little bit, okay? So she's definitely speaking in quotes. Yet, the moment after, if the door was opened, spread about the floor, hung upon the walls, pendant from the ceiling. So we get a lot of inversions here. Those, yet, the moment after, we need a verb in here, okay? Something has to happen. We're getting a lot of auxiliary, marginal information, okay? If the door was opened, spread above the floor, hung upon the walls, pendant from the ceiling, all of this is marginal. We did not get to the basic idea yet. And suddenly what happens is, what? My hands were empty. So she started to think about something and then broke her thought in the middle and did not finish the sentence. We do not get a verb. And then she's like, what? She's confused. And we are definitely very confused too. So this is another stepping stone of literary modernism. If my character is confused, why should the reader have the right of understanding everything? If my character is confused, you have to be confused. If my character is a liar, I will lie to you and I'll tell you things in my story that did not happen. And so you'll be reading the book and thinking, but he said something different. He did something. Oh no, it was a lie. The book was lying to you. What? So if my character gets drunk, my text has to become drunk, and therefore probably crying or laughing a lot or wanting to pay everybody's bills. I don't know, but the text has to change because you get this idea that you should not name it. You should show it. Don't tell me he is happy. Show me. Don't tell me he seduced her. Tell me how, what did he say? What did he do? This is the difficult thing, to say they fell in love is very easy. Show me the magic, okay? Then you get Romeo and Juliet, and you show the magic. If you just say like that, they fell in love and lived happily ever after. This is easy, okay? So basically, we get that this thought is interrupted. The shadow of a thrush, this little bird in here, quite cute. The shadow of a thrush crossed the carpet from the deepest wells of silence. This is a well, so the deepest wells of silence, a metaphor, quite poetic, okay? So basically, there was no sound. Everything was silent with the exception of the wood pigeon that is still making his bubble sound, okay? But then a new sound arises. Safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beat softly. What? The pulse of the house. What does this mean? The house is speaking with her. It's pulsing. Safe, safe. Yeah, why not? It's a haunted house. Haunted houses do bad things. So actually, this is quite a nice haunted house because probably most, if you're reading Stephen King, the house would be saying, I will kill you or something like that. And here she's saying, safe, safe, safe. The treasure buried. The room, the pulse stopped short. Oh, was that the buried treasure? So the house is pulsating with the impression of noise. It sounds like there is this echo of safe, safe, safe. And suddenly we mention a treasure that is buried. And the wife has already heard the ghosts discussing that treasure. And she realized that they're looking for a treasure when they're roaming the house at night. And so she's trying to guess what the treasure is. Is that a lot of gold? Is that a pack of letters? Is that some kind of magic scroll? A photo from a beloved daughter? I don't know. It could be anything. It could be a real treasure, very valuable. It could be a metaphorical treasure, something that has value for them, but it's actually, it has no monetary value, right? So she's always wondering, what are they looking for? You know, maybe with the wish to help them. Next paragraph. Anna?
A moment later, the light had faded. Out in the garden then? But the trees spun darkness from a wandering beam of sun. So fine, so rare, coolly sunk beneath the surface, the beam I sought always burned behind the glass. Death was the glass. Death was between us, coming to the woman first, hundreds of years ago, leaving the house, sealing all the windows. The rooms were darkened. He left it, left her, went north, went east, saw the stars turned in the southern sky, sought the house, found it dropped beneath the downs. Safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beat gladly. The treasure, yours.
Thank you. So now we have the narrator and her thoughts, you know, being intersected. And so we get a description. A moment later, the light had faded. So now it's the end of the afternoon. It's getting dark. Okay, and we all know dark is their favorite, you know, they're like cats. They roam alone and at night, you know. And so the ghosts are about to get out. So the narrator describes this, and then we get into her head again. Out in the garden then? So maybe they're looking for the treasure in the garden because they're not in the house. But the trees spun darkness for a wandering beam of sun. Beautiful images, sincerely. To spun is the past form of to spin. And to spin can be to flip, to rotate, like to spin a coin, right? But also to spin wool, right? So fiar in Portuguese, okay? Both things can be, and both meanings can be taking place in here, because maybe the trees spin darkness, elas tecem da escuridão, for a wandering beam of sun, for the last ray of the sun, okay? Maybe they're making, they're creating darkness because they're covering the last rays of the sun. Or they're flipping the darkness, because, you know, when you see the sun through trees and you get that flickering image, you know, like the leaves are moving, and then you get like this pulsating light because of this. So in any way we interpret it, it's a pretty cool image, sincerely. Very short, but very meaningful. And once again, we're talking about someone that is very, very aware of all of this. So this is not just, you know, sometimes students get like, oh, literary teachers, they, you know, literature teachers, they see things, oh my God. But, you know, I agree, many times that's true, but not in such a case, okay? Because we're talking about someone that is extremely aware of her craft. Yeah. If she was alive today, she would be definitely a coach teaching people, you know, like masterclass or something like that. So fine, so rare, coolly sunk beneath the surface, the beam I sought always burned behind the glass. She notices the last rays of light, and that ray makes her think about the ghosts. Oh, this ray is so fine. This ray, the light is so rare. It coolly sinks beneath the surface of the window, the glass in the window. And the beam I sought always burned behind the glass. Death was the glass. Death was between us. Why is she saying this? Death was the glass. Because she can only see the ghosts through the glass, right? When they pass in front of it. So this is why death was the glass. The glass is the tool that she uses to look into the afterlife, okay? Death was between us. The rooms were darkened. And then she starts to imagine what happened to them. She imagines this story. He left it. He left the house, left her, went north, went east. He saw the stars, turned into the southern sky. So he's some kind of traveler. He's some kind of explorer. And then he comes back and he sought the house to seek, right? To look for something, to search for something. So he sought the house years later, maybe. And he found the house had dropped beneath the downs. The downs are little hills that you find in England. So the house had fallen beneath the downs means that it had fallen in disrepair. It had fallen into ruins because the woman has died while he was away. And when he comes back, she's dead and the house is in ruins. Okay. But the house, it's not a sad thing because the house is saying safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beat gladly. It does not beat sadly. It beats gladly. Okay. This is very important. The treasure yours. Apparently, the house is saying it's the treasure yours. Anna, please.
The wind roars up the avenue. Trees stoop and bend this way and that. Moonbeams splash and spill wildly in the rain, but the beam of the lamp falls straight from the window. The candle burns stiff and still, wandering through the house, opening the windows, whispering not to wake us. The ghostly couple seek their joy.
Thank you. So we do get more descriptions. Now the wind starts to roar like lions, right? The sound of the wind. The trees stoop, they incline themselves. Okay, so the trees are doing like this. Is a very strong wind. The moon beams, the rays of the moon are splashing and spilling wildly in the rain. A very beautiful image because the raindrops are falling and then the beams of the moon are passing through the raindrops and they are splashing and spilling. We know that water spills, that water splashes. It's not the light that does this. So she's inverting the logic here to create this poetic image. But the beam of the lamp falls straight from the window. So now there is a lamp that is falling straight, which means that this is fire. You know, it's not an electric lamp. So you have a lamp, you have a fire in your lamp, a small flame, and it's up. It's not like this, like in the wind. It's up. So this means that there is a lamp turned on inside the house. Okay, the candle burns stiff and still. Wandering through the house, opening windows, whispering not to wake us, the ghostly couple seek their joy. So they're looking for happiness. They do not seem the kind of murderers, ghosts that come after you to kill you, and you know they are kind of nice actually. Okay, and they're looking for their happiness just like everybody else. And this is what they're saying. I'll read this one. Here we slept, she says, and he adds, kisses without number. Waking in the morning, awaking in the morning, sorry. Silver between the trees, upstairs, in the garden, when summer came, in winter snow time. So you see, there's almost a duet going on there. It's as if they were singing a song, you know, they're starting a sentence, complementing, they are very much in sync. So we get the idea that this is a loving couple. This is not, the story she created in her mind is that he left her and maybe, you know, he went away, he repented. When he comes back, it is too late. If this was a story from the 19th century, if this was the Bronte sisters, you know, Wuthering Heights and so on, if this was Jane Eyre, that would definitely be the case. But it's not necessarily the case in here because they do not seem to be, you know, they seem to be in unison. They seem to be in sync, you know, they seem to care about one another. They're walking by holding hands and they're very careful to one another, like kisses without number. They are commemorating that they're waking together, that they're spending summer together, that they're spending winter together. Okay, and then the narrator comes back in. The doors go shutting far in the distance, gently knocking like the pulse of a heart. So apparently she can listen to their dialogue and they're going away. So they're moving away from her and they're closing the doors while they pass. They're, you know, the ghost, like in that movie, The Ghost, basically, right? At some point he learns how to move things, right? And apparently those ghosts, they can also close doors and open doors. So they're going out away, they're closing, they're shutting the doors, but they're doing this gently. And suddenly the way the door closes is like the pulse of a heart. So we have read at least three references to the house pulsing, safe, safe, safe. And now we get this description of the doors closing as if it was the pulse of a heart. So maybe this is the impression that when they close the doors, not slamming the doors, but gently, they're very nice ghosts, very well educated. When they close the door gently, maybe this is the sound that we get, safe, or the impression of this sound, you know? Anna, can you read this one, please?
Sure. Nearer they come, cease at the doorway. The wind falls, the rain slides silver down the glass. Our eyes darken. We hear no steps beside us. We see no lady spread her ghostly cloak. His hands shield the lantern. Look, he breathes. Sound asleep. Love upon their lips.
Aha, and now you can see that not even literature professors are immune to Virginia Woolf, because actually they're not moving further from her. They're coming closer, right? And now we realize this because nearer they come. Okay, so it's actually the opposite. My previous interpretation was just wrong. They come nearer and they stop at the doorway. Okay, we will realize in the next paragraph that probably the couple, the wife and the husband that are alive, the living, they are sleeping. Okay, so we get back to the same situation at the start of the story. They are in this period of being half asleep, half awake. So the closest, she's kind of listening to the to the ghosts coming closer, and they stop at the doorway of their bedroom. The wind falls, the rain slides silver down the glass. Beautiful image, because the rain is sliding down the glass, and then the moon is coming through the glass. So this is why it's sliding silver, because you have the streaks of light, you know, coming through the. So you know, it's a way to say things without actually saying it. Everything is indirect. Everything is somehow something else. Our eyes darken. Okay, our eyes become dark. What does this mean? If I go to bed at 11 p.m. and I say, my eyes are darkening. Right now, you probably, this is about sleep. So we were sleeping. This is what this means, okay? So why, Virginia Woolf? Why we are sleeping? Why our eyes darken? You know, just to confuse you, that there's no other reason. Okay, and this is part of the deal in here. So the wife is telling us in this altered state of conscious in which is half sleep, she's saying our eyes darken. We are getting to sleep. We're drawing in. You know, we're sinking in, but we hear no steps beside us. We see no lady spread her ghostly cloak. This is a cloak. So basically, we do not see the classic ghost. There's no one trying to come at us. His hands shield the lantern. So basically, they have the lantern that was mentioned before. You know, the one which had a candle and the flame was stiff. It was rigid. So now he has the candle, and he's covering the candle with his hand, because he does not want the light to wake them up. So once again, like your mama, when she comes to kiss you goodbye before sleep, he's doing pretty much the same thing. Look, he breathes, sound asleep, love upon their lips, he says to his wife, the other ghost.
Should I?
Yeah.
Stooping, holding their silver lamp above us, long they look and deeply. Long they pause. The wind drives straightly, the flames stoop slightly. Wild beams of moonlight cross both floor and wall, and meeting, stain the faces bent, the faces pondering, the faces that search the sleepers and seek their hidden joy.
Great. So they are inclined, okay? The living are in their bed, so they're lying down, and the ghosts are up, and they're stooping, okay? This is to stoop. So they're inclining with the lantern, protecting the lantern like this. And long they look, and deeply. Long they pause. The wind drives straightly. The flame stoops slightly. So now the flame moves a little bit. Wild beams of moonlight cross both floor and wall, and meeting, stain the faces bent. To stain, you know, when you wash your clothes, you do it because maybe there are stains in them, you know, like marks in your clothes. So manchas, basically. So when they incline themselves to look at the living, the rays of the moon light on their face, and so we can see an impression of their face lit by the moonlight, just a little bit. So just a stain, okay, uma mancha. And meeting, so the ray meeting their faces, stain the faces bent, the faces pondering, so they are thinking carefully. They're like, you know, this is to ponder. The faces that search the sleepers and seek their hidden joy. So they're looking at the sleepers, they're looking for their hidden joy. Whose hidden joy? The hidden joy of the living or the hidden joy of the ghosts? This is ambiguous. Maybe this ambiguity, which is there here on purpose, probably is hinting to us that maybe those ghosts are somehow related to the living. Maybe they are ancestors. Maybe they are a happily couple that has inhabited that house, and now that the new couple moved in, they're somehow helping their love story or trying to create problems. I don't know, but they do not seem to be creating problems. They seem to be quite nice ghosts, right? So we don't know, but maybe this ambiguity is pointing towards this, to a connection between the living and the dead. Yes, Anna.
And something that is very beautiful about the way that she writes is that since sound is something that is so present in the lives of the characters, right? She communicates with the ghosts because she's listening to them. She doesn't communicate, but she listens to them all the time. And the way that Virginia Woolf works the text, it is infused with sound. So it is also a text to be read out loud, right? If you see the alliterations and the beautiful harmony that she's creating here, right? The subsequent repetition of sounds like the asses search, sleepers, and seek the hidden joy, right? So she is really working the text poetically. Okay, shall I read the next one?
Yes, please.
Safe, safe, safe. The heart of the house beats proudly. Long years, he sighs. Again you found me. Here, she murmurs. Sleeping in the garden reading, laughing, rolling apples in the loft. Here we left our treasure. Stooping, their light lifts the lids upon my eyes. Safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beats wildly. Waking, I cry, "Oh, is this your buried treasure? The light in the heart?"
Thank you. So once again, they are inclined, they're looking into the living, observing them sleep, they are admiring their love. They're looking for their hidden joy. Then we get the pulse of the house once more. Safe, safe, safe. The heart of the house beats proudly. Very positive vocabulary. Okay, it's a heart beating. It's something that it's bringing us the image of love and care. Is not bringing us the terror or assassination into mind. Precisely the opposite. Long years, he sighs. Again, you found me. Here, she murmurs, sleeping in the garden, reading, laughing, rolling apples in the loft. So basically, all the things that she did while she was alive are pretty much the same things that the housewife does while she's alive. Okay. Once again, we see this connection that this ambiguity here has suggested. We get a further evidence for this interpretation. Maybe if this was a science fiction story, maybe they are the ghosts of the living themselves from the future, or something like this. It could be. Maybe actually the ghost is herself. You see, I'm being punished. The ghosts maybe are here right now. So if this was a science fiction story, maybe this was precisely the case, but obviously I'm just joking in here. But this creates this sense of connection between the two couples, the living and the dead one. And then the woman ghost says something else. Here we left our treasure. And she says this while she's looking into them. And so now when the housewife hears this, she suddenly realizes, aha, now I know. Stooping, their lights lifts the lids upon my eyes. So once again, she cannot tell us, I woke up. She has to say, their light what is it? The light lifts the lids upon my eyes. This is the eyelids. So lift the lids, basically, I open my eyes. Safe, safe, safe. The pulse of the house beats wildly. Now it's wildly. Before it was proudly. Okay. Now it is very, so we're getting to the climax of the story. And the climax is at the very last two sentences. So if this was a poem, we would call this a golden key, uma chave de ouro in Portuguese, right? When you have the last verse of the poem that makes everything just perfect, and then that synthesizes everything that was said before. Para tão grande amor, tão curta vida. Para tão longo amor, tão curta vida. Camões, for example. This is one of the most famous golden keys in Portuguese poetry, right? Because it's just, just 10 syllables, but it summons up so well everything that Camões has discussed before. We could call this a golden key if this was a poem. This is not a poem, but you get the idea, right? So she suddenly understands, and waking, I cry, okay? Not cry with tears, but cry like, very loud, okay? So gritei, I cry. Oh, is this your buried treasure? The light in the heart. So now she understood what it is. She had this aha moment, and the treasure is the light in the heart. Okay, and that's it. This is our short story. We still have just 15 minutes. I promise you I'll keep on time. Okay, I know some of you will not believe me, but I will, or I'll try. We will have a discussion. Okay, we will do these things in a book a month with more time. So, is this a typical ghost story? Think after the class. Think by yourself, and probably you will reach the conclusion it's very much not. Okay, and there are many ways in which it's not. Okay, we could discuss a little bit more. Who are those characters? We already discussed a lot. Actually, just I talked, but basically, let's pretend it was a discussion. Okay, so we talked about them, and we could say more things, impressions, further hypotheses. Okay. We don't have time for this. I want to comment upon something that Virginia Woolf says about ghost stories in general, about Henry James. But as you guys know, this is an open class, so we have to do a little bit of propaganda. So now it is the time for it. If you have to go to the bathroom, it's okay. It will just take a couple of minutes. Okay. So as I told you in the beginning, this is an example of the kind of class that we have in this course in here, reading class, designed for people that do not have the time to read outside of the course, however, most of our courses do have readings. So if you want to get closer to the text, to do your reading first and then come to the class to discuss your reading, then we have many other options. If you're short on time, there is this course that is taught by Anna, Short Stories, in which we read one short story every week. You read it at home, and then you come to class to discuss it. Of course, we will be analyzing details, but we will not read everything, word for word. But the texts are very, very short, like up to 10 pages maximum. So the idea is that you just need maybe less than half an hour a week to read the stories and then come to class. Okay. These are the authors we'll be reading this semester. Just a quick presentation. I'm sure you all know Charles Dickens. I'm pretty also sure that you all have heard or read Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women, Mulherzinhas in Portuguese, the traditional translation. Gogol from Russia, Boccaccio from Italy, Borges from Argentina. We always take the opportunity to also read some texts in translations, provided they are freaking masterpieces. Okay, so those are very interesting reads. They were not written in Portuguese, so unless you know Russian, you would be reading Gogol in translation anyway. So here's your opportunity to do that while you get your English a little push. Other writers that we will be reading, Lucia Berlin, who has just been, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the New York Times has compiled this list of the best books of the 21st century. And the short stories we will be reading are there. Lucia Berlin is one of the texts that they consider the greatest. And we also do the same. And I was very glad that we had already settled for Lucia Berlin quite a few months ago. So I was happy when I saw her on the list, because I think they're right. Dorothy Parker, not so well known, but very funny, very interesting writer from the US. Roald Dahl is the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He has also written short stories for adults, and they're quite funny and quite disturbing sometimes. So this is why we wanted to add them. If you love Virginia Woolf, the author you would like the most probably is Edith Wharton. Okay, also a proto-modernist, very much going into a similar vein. Okay, then there are courses in which you read a book a month. This is the name of the school, right? So we have to honor this. And so we have 3 such courses: intermediate, novels intermediate, novels advanced, and novels big reads, which is a new creation that we are just starting. Anna is teaching the novels intermediate. So would you like to present it, Anna?
Sure. The novels intermediate this semester is going to be mostly focused on fantasy and adventure stories. And I'm sure that you recognize, if not all, most of the titles that we have scheduled for this semester. We will read beautiful classics of fantasy, such as Coraline by Neil Gaiman, one of the most acclaimed authors of contemporary literature, right? Also, we will read C.S. Lewis and one book from the Chronicles of Narnia, and the famous The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Tolkien, he was also a professor of Oxford of philology, right? So he works a lot with the text. So besides being a great fantasy work, it also is very rich in terms of text. I think that the works that you might not be as familiar with might be Margaret Atwood's The Penelopead, in which she shows a different side of her writing, which is deeply dedicated to mythology. She tells the story of Penelope, the wife of Ulysses. So it's quite interesting to see her feminist perspective on such a famous myth. Yes. And also we will read the Irish writer Sheridan Le Fanu with Carmilla, which is probably one of the first, if not the first, female vampires, right? All vampires in traditional literature, they tend to be male, and Carmilla is a female vampire. So it's going to be a great semester to read all of these great authors together, talking about fantasy and literature as well.
Plus, Carmilla was published 20 years before Dracula, and Bram Stoker knew Sheridan Le Fanu. So it's not Carmilla that's following Dracula, guys. It is Dracula that is following Carmilla. It is pretty awesome. And the idea of this novels intermediate is that you're reading the original, you're reading the full book, but they have shorter sentences, somewhat easier vocabulary. So they're not adapted, but they are easier to cope. Okay. Then on the advanced course that I'll be teaching, we'll be reading novels about conflict, so personal conflict, but also wars and societal conflict in general, just because the world is so peaceful right now, so we need a little bit more of it, right? We'll be reading Heart of Darkness, a masterpiece by Joseph Conrad. Then we'll move on into who is Polish and wrote in English, right? So pretty brilliant. Atonement by McEwan. Who is Alive, who was also in the list by the New York Times, considered one of the greatest of the century. Beautiful narrative. Very nice movie too. Then we move into Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, a sci-fi story, very funny, about a guy fighting in World War II and being abducted by aliens, and it's super funny. Then we'll read a Nobel Prize winner. I think this is the guy that probably just a few of you may have heard about, Pierre Lagerkvist. He is one of the existentialists. So we all know Camus and Sartre, but existentialism was also practiced in other areas of the world. And in Scandinavia, Lagerkvist is Swedish. And he published this during the Second World War, and it's a highly, highly acclaimed novel in Swedish literature. So we'll be reading this one in translation. And finally, Nemesis by Philip Roth, contemporary once again. This novel was published in 2010. Philip Roth is just brilliant. So this is such a beautiful story that takes place also during the Second World War. And then finally, oh my God, I have just 4 minutes. If I'm about to keep the promise.
I'll try to be short, right? If you have a lot of time, but you want to read like the most incredible classics of the history of English literature, you will sure have to be a part of the novel's big reads. And this semester we are reading the Bronte sisters, right? So this is going to be a whole semester dedicated to their literary project, right? As a whole, all of these books that you see in the screen, they were published in the same year, 1847, which apart from all the biographical notes that we have at the moment saying that they used to write together, the fact that they all published the same book, the books in the same year also attest to that. So we are reading the famous Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And the difference between novels big reads from the intermediate and advanced is that we take more time with the books, mostly because they are super long, right? So we need more time to read it. So we read it, Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre in 2 months, right? Because they are the longest. And we finish off the semester with Anne Bronte's Miss Ray, right? So this is also a bi-weekly course. We also have 2 groups. So it's going to be a great semester reading these amazing authors.
To end up, yes, there's this thing too.
Yes, sorry about that. But also we do have some English classes if you're a bit unsure if you're going to be able to manage reading English on your own. You can also join one of our courses, which are mostly dedicated into learning grammar and to practice speaking, writing, conversation, listening, right? And we have this semester, we have been separating the 2 courses, both English Intermediate and English Advanced, right? We have 2 groups for each. You can do a placement test, teste de nivelamento if you want to, if you are unsure, and then I can direct you to the best of the groups for you. Okay, Áureo,
Yeah.
it's all yours.
So you can find the prices in the website, in the Instagram. You can look at the screen and take a shot and a green screen. The prices, there are pretty big discounts for combinations. If you want to study more than one literary course or combine literature and English, you can do that. It gets, the difference, for example, if you're combining English with novels, for example, is you get like an 80% discount in the second course, things like that. So, and it's quite great for the process. You're having one class a week of language and then one class a week of literature. They really boost one another, right? This is the timetable in case you want to consult it. One important detail that we forgot to mention is that our students have free access to their course. So if you're coming usually on the reading class on Wednesday, but then you could not come for some reason, you can come on the other reading class course without any problem. You don't even have to tell me, you just show up. If you cannot come to any of them, all our classes are recorded and the recordings are available to our students. And so you can watch it later on too, okay? That's it. Classes start on the 10th of August in 3 weeks. That's all. Let's get back to Virginia Woolf. Time is up. This is the last thing she had to say about ghost stories. She wrote an essay on Henry James. Right there at the beginning of the class, I've mentioned that she's not only a great artist and an extremely influential artist, but also a great thinker and a very influential thinker too. And she wrote this essay about Henry James, one of the great writers from both the US and England. And he wrote perhaps the most famous ghost story of the English language, right? The Turn of the Screw. And so she's writing an essay about him, and the essay is published in 1921, okay? The very same year in which A Haunted House was published. So this is quite suspicious, okay? Basically, she's telling us what she wants to do with this short story, okay? And this is what she says. This is Virginia Woolf speaking. to admit that the supernatural was used for the last time by Mrs. Radcliffe. This is a famous author from the 18th century, okay, who wrote many Gothic stories. So to admit that she was the last one to talk about ghosts, and that modern nerves are immune from the wonder and terror which ghosts have always inspired, would be to throw up the sponge too easily. To throw up the sponge means chutar o balde, maybe something like that. Pendurar as chuteiras, okay? This is this kind of expression. So if the old methods are obsolete, it is the business of a writer to discover new ones. The public can feel again what it has all once felt. There can be no doubt about that. Only from time to time, the point of attack must be changed. So we have to change our perspective from time to time. So in the beginning of the class, I said the entire point of the modernist is to talk about the same things in a different way, make it new. And this is exactly what she's declaring here, that she's trying to do with this ghost story. It is not, she's inserting a new creative element to this long tradition of ghost stories, and actually creating a kind of a love story rather than a ghost story, because we get the impression that the light and the heart, you may think about this after the class, but their treasure is the light in the heart. And this is probably the love that they share, the love that they have for one another, and the fact that they are together in death as they were in life. So this is definitely a story that ends with happily ever after, because they are there in the ever after and they're still happy and they're still together and still loving. So very, very different from what we would expect from such a title, A Haunted House. I would not mind, sincerely, okay, to live in such a place. And I think neither would you. So very, very creative. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We kind of were on time, if you allow me a minute or two. If you have questions, comments, we're all ears, okay? So we don't have time to leave, but if you do, bye-bye. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, everybody. If you want to speak, you can open your mics and speak, or if you prefer writing on chat, I'll be reading the questions. It's up to you. Thank you so much.
I'll have a look at the chat because I could not before.
And I'm so sorry about the maddening sound in the beginning. I disabled it, but it kept like bothering me. I'm so sorry. I hope that it hasn't spoiled your experience. Good. Thank you so much. Lani is asking, safe, safe, safe. What does that mean in the story, Áureo?
I would say that the house is warning them, because this sound is described as the pulse of a heart, right? So we get this do, 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 right? Which is something that we obviously associate with passion and being in love and everything else. So I think the house is indicating to the housewife that those ghosts are not a threat, that they are actually just people that are happy and that are walking around and that identify with her. And so this is a way of telling us probably that this is also a happy marriage between the living ones. Although the husband never appears, it seems that since they identify with the ghosts, that we could apply the same logic and therefore conclude that they're also very loving and caring for one another. So in the end, this safe, 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 is indicating for us this quality of a nest, of a love story in the end, right? So we would never expect, but this ends up like Romeo and Juliet, but nicer.
But yeah, with a better ending. Also, I think that there's a very famous saying in English, which is the house is where the heart is, right? So the idea of the pulse, it also reassures us to that, as it invokes this in the narrative. Any questions? Anything that you would like to ask? Pulse of life? Yes, it could be.
Someone mentioned, Rafael mentioned that The Hours, the movie, was inspired by Mrs. Dalloway. Definitely. We read the book a few years ago, like 2 years ago. Very, very nice book. A lot of, has won so many prizes, right? It's a great contemporary novel that is based upon Virginia Woolf. I'm looking into the chat, guys. Okay, is there any other question? No.
I don't
I
think.
have
Well,
a question about
yes.
class
Go ahead.
itself. So can you join just for a month, or do you really need to be the 6 months long, the 6 books, let's say?
Sure. You can join. You can even, like, if you are interested in reading one book in the advanced in the first month, and then another book in the intermediate, right? You can even alternate, but you're not obliged to sign up for the whole semester, right? It's up to you.
Thanks. Nice.
Good.
Congratulations for this nice initiative. I've been looking for such a group for a long time. I don't have the time right now to join right in August, but I will keep an eye on your Instagram to follow the readings. Maybe at some point I will join.
Thank you so much, Ana. So there are some comments here, Áureo. I don't know if you want to read them.
Yeah, Laura has mentioned, oh my God, isn't the Bells the Bronte sisters pseudonym? It is. They all published the Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre, all with fake names, pen names, and they did use Bell. So quite a wow, what a historical coincidence, right?
Lázaro is asking how Woolf in her essay considered Henry James's work. She was critical of it. I think a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, I would say she highly admired it. She learned a lot from Henry James too. You know, many of the techniques. He's also often discussed as one of the proto modernists. And I think one of the things that she would have appreciated and reused is the sense of ambiguity, because in The Turn of the Screw, we don't really know if it's a ghost story anyway, because maybe the governess is just mad. And so maybe it's all in her head. Maybe it's like, you know, a psychiatric story rather than a ghost story. And this ambiguity is really well managed in that book. And so Virginia Woolf is the queen of ambiguity, you know, of constructing this many different meanings out of her plot lines. So I think this is one of the things that she definitely got from Henry James.
And she was a literary critic, right? So she would praise much of it, most of it, but also include some critical remarks, not in a mean way. Well, at least not with Henry James, right? With Catherine Mansfield is something else. But this is like a subject for another class.
Caio has asked in here before if the class would be uploaded somewhere. Yes, we'll upload it to our YouTube channel. Okay, so maybe in, I don't know, in a few days. So if you want to send it to friends, or you can find it there, just have to look for a book a month and you find it. I'm scrolling down, guys. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
Vanessa has a question about payments. No, it can be actually by credit card, Pix, transfer, bank transfer, bullet, whatever you want, right? It's up to you. Thank you so much, everybody. All right.
Thank you, guys. Many of you are thanking for the class in here in the chat.
Yeah, there has been a very active chat, right? So thank you for that. Thank you for participating.
Okay, I'm done. No more questions. Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you all in here with us. Yeah, enjoy your evening, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Stay tuned for the next one, right? We'll be publishing it shortly.
Yeah, probably in 2 weeks we're gonna have another open class.
Yes, good.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Have a great,
Thank you.
Have a great Saturday, right? Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, very nice. Thank you so much, everybody. Great. Thank you. All right.